So we're here today with a familiar character to Arizona performance people for multi-generations, Mr. Ed Smith. Ed, welcome to our little taping session today.
Thank you.
You're now a member of the Arizona Drag Racing Hall of Fame. You're an Arizona drag racing legend. And we just got word that you've been added to the Arizona Motorsports Hall of Fame. So that's pretty much a trifecta. Let's talk about your years and how you got there. And I'm sure this is nothing you set out to do or accomplish, but you've had a pretty good run over the years. So where were you born?
In Ohio.
Ohio.
Whereabouts? In Bryan, Ohio.
And that's
northwest corner.
Oh, northwest corner. Okay,
yeah,
so
yeah.
By what's up there?
Little town.
Is that Toledo up that area?
It was 60 miles west of Toledo.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what do you remember about it? How long did you live there?
I lived there until I was 20.
So you went to grade school and high school?
Grade school, high school, and then graduated in '59.
So when did who was your influence and your passion for cars? Where did that come from?
Influence in what?
If your passion for cars.
I think we started out, was basically, somebody asked me, how did I get started? And it was basically survival. If we wanted something fixed, we couldn't afford to fix it, so we couldn't afford to pay somebody else to fix it, so we had to fix it ourselves. Either weld it up or fix it or buy it or something like that.
And that was long before YouTube videos, so you could, you
yeah.
really had to learn.
Yeah, you had to learn by yourself.
So when was the passion for going fast? How did that develop?
I think somewhere, some of the neighbor kids had some cool cars. 56 Chevys, convertibles. One of the girls in town had a 46 Ford two-door sedan with lowered fender skirts and flipper hubcaps and big chrome extensions out the back. And I think it had some stuff on the thing, but she drove it. It was a girl's car. And we used to watch that go by. And 54 Ford with a Continental kit, black convertibles, and things like this was always sharp cars. And so,
what was your first project?
My first project, probably in cars, was a farm tractor. We called it a Doodlebug, and that was a 36 Ford that I remember I took the body all off except the cowl and the bus seat, and sawed the frame off right behind the rear spring, and we called it a farm tractor. It had some hitch on the back, but we could drive it as fast as we wanted to go, and we could drive it to town without a driver's license.
Because it was
so we drove that one, was 14 and 15 years old before a driver's license. And the policeman couldn't do anything about it because we called it a farm tractor. It was very, very fast.
How'd you keep the front end on the ground?
What?
How'd you keep the front end from coming up?
Oh, it didn't. It was a small tire. 820 15s on the back, and you could spin them. There's no weight to it. It had a V8 motor in it, dual exhaust, and no fenders or nothing like that on it. So it was fast.
So were you the guy that everybody said, there goes that Smith kid again?
Yeah, there goes that Smith kid. And my dad got warned about it a lot because people would say, you better stop that kid from going up the road so fast or something like that. And
did you have the talk, or did you just kind of say,
oh, well, whatever.
Yeah.
We didn't want anybody to tell my dad anything because that wasn't good for you.
No.
So
when your dad hears about it and you have
yeah,
to talk
you were in
to Dad,
trouble. Yeah.
So you got passionate in the cars. So did you race it all back then before you moved out here?
The first car I really bought that was a 36 Ford. I still have it today. I just got it restored the other day. I bought that for my brother, a four-door. He had it for 1 year, and I bought it from him. And then I was driving on the road, some friends of ours, and a truck went by past us, and we were going wide open. So the next time I ordered a Chevy adapter for it and put a Chevy motor in it, and I started drag racing it probably when I was 17 and 18 years old. I know it was in high school, and we drag raced it in Toledo, Ohio, and Terre Haute, Indiana, sometimes in Muncie, Indiana, and maybe up in Lansing, Michigan too.
So you remember
all the normal things.
Drag strips, actual drag racing on the drag strip, or street racing? Never street race, did you?
Oh, street raced all the time. All the time.
Good. We know you're telling us the truth now.
Yeah, all the time. And then my first set of slicks, we had one of the kids worked up on the truck on the turnpike, and the tire people went by and stopped to go buy gas all the time. So he told me if I bought a good set of Firestone 500s, then you turn them into them, they could bring them back in a couple of weeks, or slicks. So that was our first set of slicks I've got.
So they cap them?
So they were recapped, white walls with little grooves in them. And I raced those tires. That's what I had in the car when I raced it. And the first trophy I got was in Toledo.
What was the name of the track?
Glass City Dragway, and I still have that trophy.
Oh, that's special.
So it's really,
I've been to your collection. You have a lot of historical things that are pretty fantastic that
yeah.
that are
Thanks.
just really cool.
Yeah.
So you stuck around there, and then what was your passion for Arizona? How did you become interested, and what would you tell me? How did the migration happen?
A friend of mine, Chuck Forsty, he worked at a Ford dealer. I worked at a Dodge dealer, and we ran around. I met him when we were probably about 16 years old, 17 years old, and sometime we says, well, we're just tired of the rust and the snow, working on cars and stuff, and we decided to go out west. And so I sold my car, and we fixed his up, completely restored a 56 Ford, and we put our toolbox in the trunk, and we left and went to Denver. I had an aunt in Denver, stayed there a couple of days, and went to Albuquerque. Didn't like that, and we came to Phoenix, and somebody said, you ought to cruise Central. So we went down and cruised Central, and we got hooked. And the next Monday morning, I went to the Dodge dealer and got a job.
You were hooked.
That was it. And we
So
both
you and
stayed
Chuck,
here.
a lot of memories. You and Chuck coming
Yeah.
out here and
Yeah.
and moving out together, and
Yeah.
you both have we'll get into your business and such, but
Yeah.
ran successful businesses for between the two of you. 60 years,
50 years, 55 years.
55. So over 110 years between the
Yeah.
two of you,
Yeah.
and you both came out together, and you both have changed what we do here. And so you went to work for the Dodge dealership.
Yes. When?
You said that was your first job at the Dodge
Yeah.
dealership.
Yeah.
And how did that go? I mean, tell me, were you there? What made you decide? How did you migrate from the Dodge dealership to Ed Smith's Speed Shop?
I worked for a Dodge dealer, Pegler's Dodge City, 16th Street in Camelback, for a couple of years. And I went to Valley Dodge and Glendale a couple of years, and back to things. And then I think I saw someone, Chuck started his own shop, so I had Chuck's Speed Shop on my car, the Anglia, for 1 year, and then I changed it over, and I worked for J.C. Penney's. We opened a store in Christown. I wanted to do there and learn a little bit more about it, and then I worked for the Chevy dealer once Camelback and 27th Avenue. Rudolph Chevrolet. I worked there in the used car department because I wanted to know about Chevrolets. All I knew was about Dodge, a little bit. I could fix anything anyways, but anyways. And then in '68, I decided to open my own shop.
And
so that's
how big of a leap of faith was that? I mean, how did you?
Actually, I was doing on Saturdays and Wednesday nights and stuff. I worked on cars, on parts, and at my house at home. So I rebuilt transmissions, 4-speed transmissions, and sold them, and a few things like this. So I had quite a few customers already before I opened my shop, and I actually rented a building, and I had rented the building for a month or so before I even opened it up.
And that was at
27th Avenue in Glendale.
And it was a big step for you.
That was a big step, yeah.
But Ed Smith's was born.
Yeah, that was it, yeah.
In the early days, where you sold parts and serviced, or?
Yeah. It was Ed Smith's Complete Auto, and then I couldn't figure out why some of the dealers here in town, some of the speed shop, could sell stuff cheaper than I could buy it, until one of the wholesalers said, well, you're not a speed shop. And I said, well, it was Complete Auto. So next Monday morning, I was Speed Shop. I wrote it up on the building, and then I could get the WD prices and be competitive with Lopers and Gusiks and everything else on pricing then. So that was it.
Back in the day before mail order, when it was all vicious.
Yeah, it was all no mail order.
No mail order.
Yeah.
So you ran, you were successful with that, and then what cars were you racing through? When you got here, did you continue to race yourself?
Yeah. Actually, the first car I raced with the Dodge, my good friend bought a '63 Dodge from brand new car, two-door hardtop, and we actually had Valley Dodge Road on the side of it, and we raced at Beeline that year in '63 or '64. We changed the engine some and different. It was an automatic transmission. We raced it then in '63. That's the first time I raced in Beeline for getting competitive, I think, with that car.
And
I bought the Anglia. I don't know, one time I bought the Anglia maybe a couple years later.
so tell me about the Anglia. What made you? What was your passion for that? You went lighter car?
I just wanted a lighter car and something faster, and there was a lot prettier car, and again, lighter so you could haul it easier and transport it, and it was a lot of fun.
So the Anglia was at a great career.
It was a great career, yeah. I bought it from Butch Crawford, and he'd had it for a little while, and it was actually painted the same thing as Loper's car. I think Bowers painted over in Glendale and put the same stripes on them and the same B&M thing, and Cal fiberglass was on the fenders, and was actually a matched to Loper's car. His was a little Haas, and mine on the fender when I bought it said Little Boss on it in the same place. So it was basically a copy of that.
So did you race HRA or
I raced American Hot Rod Association, yeah.
in the gas class? Or?
Yeah, in the gas class, yeah, we raced, and sometimes I took the front fenders off of it and raced the altered class, and that would be a better bracket. And,
So you had the choice of who's here, what do I want to run, who, how can be best competitive?
yeah, rest competitive, yeah.
was
It's
the
always
big-
a small block Chevy, and we had a stroker motor in it, and things like this, and a 377 cubic inch, and my first fuel injection I bought it from Johnny Loper, brand new. And that was I think I paid $275 for the complete fuel injection.
That was a lot of money.
And the hoses and everything, yeah. And
When you started to build the cars, and your first, in those days, you had the ability because you had the shop to fabricate a lot of stuff, but there wasn't as many off-the-shelf parts as there are today. So did you build a lot, and you do something, and all of a sudden somebody else would see, I want the same thing that Ed has. So did you get a lot of business that way for people looking at your car?
And we actually did front end alignments. So we did a lot of raise the cars up. I don't know how many springs I put in Chevelles and raised them up, and raised the rear of the cars up, and did a lot of suspension work like that on the cars and Camaros and different things. And then of course we did headers and exhaust systems and things like that over the years, and was quite successful doing that.
So when was your last time down the drag strip as a driver?
Driver was the last time down the strip. I had that Hemi car, and that was that big 70 Cuda 426 Hemi. It raced the 990 class. It ran 990 and 131 miles an hour, and that's the last car I drove, and I owned that car.
What happened to that car?
Took it apart, and I kept the motor, and I sold it to somebody else. The car did, and then ended up with Blake has it, and he still has it in his collection, and they're set today down in Dave Blake's shop someplace.
So during your time of racing, you raced Beeline Dragway, Mel Larson's. Where else were what was in your? Did you go to Tucson?
Yeah, we raced. Mainly we raced. We had a lot of fun in those days. We raced. Of course, we were sponsored Watley's, and so we did a lot of stuff on Watley's cars, clutch and transmissions and things like this. And then we were teamed up with them, and we had the Falcon, the early '60 Falcon that Dennis drove, and
Dennis
then
Casera.
Dennis Casera drove, yeah. And then we had built the '64 car with a blue and white one, and we raced that everywhere. Saying we took that to Ohio and won the regional races there or national races there, and we raced that in Fremont, basically a lot of times in Orange County. We won national championship in stock class then, and then Watley's won national champions in their modified class. So we were then in 1974 we kind of quit because the gas prices went up, and we got letters from all the sponsors, and the letters said they cut all the sponsor money in half because gas prices were way up, and that's when we had to wait in line to gas stations to get gas. So we kind of stopped racing nationally then, and slowed down from there.
What did that do to your business during those times?
Well, we still had business. Basically, most of my business was automotive. not necessarily speed shop.
Okay.
I can't think that I made very much money in the speed shop business itself. But my customers brought their cars in for general repair. So we did a lot of engine repairs and overhauls and air conditioner work and brakes and whatever else we had to do. But I can say probably I have made very little money in the speed shop business itself.
That's the way they say, way to become, become a millionaire is to start off as a billionaire and buy a speed shop.
Yeah,
right?
buy a speed shop. Yeah.
But you did it. Who were some of the people that you raced against back in the days, with and against, that stand out in mind?
And competition, you mean?
Yes.
Competitors?
Competitors that were racing.
It was harder to win a race Saturday night at Beeline. It was harder to win a race there Saturday night than it would be to go to Denver and win the whole race, or San Francisco. We weren't afraid to go take the cars and go anywhere in the United States and race. And it was very rarely that we won a lot of races.
You had the Watleys, the Freemans.
Watleys and Freeman. Freeman's was a good competitor with Watleys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had quite a thing going on there, and against with everybody, we was competitors with them. But it was easier to win a race anywhere else in the United States except Beeline. There was a lot of competitors here, even with Joe Rundle and Ingrams and all the cars. Yeah.
So there was a great. It was hard to win a race at Beeline. I mean, there were a lot of great cars that would run the circuit that were there.
Yeah, there was all. Yeah, we see the same cars in Green Valley, Texas. A lot of people went from Denver over there, and especially Orange County. You go to Orange County, you thought it was almost all the cars from Phoenix were there racing.
Over there, so you also sponsored people like the Carter brothers.
Well, Carter brothers, my friend. We've been friends for 60 years. I think I was almost friends before we got married. I've been married 58 years, and Ray was next door. Neighbors were in the corner, but he was probably my closest friend that raced, and his son Dean still races.
Ray was a great guy, and definitely, we unfortunately we lost him several years ago, but another great person, a Hall of Fame guy, definitely first class. Him and his brother, and then Dean. Yeah. He was the crew chief to his son's NHRA championship winning competitional minor nostalgia dragster, where they won two
several years. National champion.
And they were on top of the game, and he was a guy that was a very smart tuner, and he figured it out. Definitely remember people like that. But I remember all sorts of cars with Ed Smiths on. If it wasn't Chuck's, it was Ed Smith's. Yeah. And it was like you and Chuck came out here together, but you were also very at a point.
We were competitive.
You were competitive.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't that much competitive. I mean, we were still friends, and even I think Chuck's had Randy Ingham's, was all Chuck's on schedule. What we did is clutch and rear end work. We set his clutches up and did rear end work and stuff on Randy's car, and of course Watley's cars and stuff like that. But Ray Carter, then back to him, I was surprised at how much stuff he wrote down. He wrote down everything, journal on everything. I didn't know he did that.
Yeah, that helped Dean. I mean, when we lost Ray, Dean still was able to have a lot of success because he went back.
Because he went back to those journals,
Yep.
But we talked about that car, and we had a lot of different things we did on the race car with clutch flights and different transmissions we did in the years younger when that car was. We first started racing race car. We had two Corvette carburetors on it, stock Corvette carburetors on that, on a 283, I think, in that race car. And then we changed it over to fuel injection. Then we changed it into alcohol and nitromethane a little bit.
There's a lot of, during that time, there's a lot of junior fuelers. Daryl Parrott.
Yeah, Daryl Parrott,
Another guy. Did he ever work for you?
He worked for me, yes he did. And actually he came from Luke Air Force Base. I had a lot of customers from Luke Air Force Base, and Daryl came work for me for probably 2 or 3 years, and he had basically he started racing. Daryl was a 57 Chevrolet, and of course everybody had names on their cars, and that was just the beginning.
That was what it was called?
That was it was painted down the side of the car, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the car. We had different things on it, and it was a 4-speed car, and we put a Continental kit on the back because that was original. A little weight, and the Continental kit tire weighed a little bit, but that's okay. he'd get the front wheels off the ground
Weight transfer.
with that 57 Chevy.
He
So
was
that was
quite a character. You would be, unfortunately, we lost him recently too. But another member of the Arizona Drag Racing Hall of Fame, well deserved. Somebody should not be forgotten. Dennis Casera. Tell us about Dennis.
Dennis, yeah.
When did you meet Dennis?
Dennis, I don't remember when I met him. I don't know when he came in the shop. He was in the service because he had something to do with National Guard. He was supposed to be in the National Guard. And he came in, and I think he did actually work for him in the shop for a little bit, but he had other jobs. And I know he was a good driver, and we had all kinds of things on that car. Built a new car for him and everything like that, and done a lot of traveling. So
the Sour Six.
Yeah.
And you won the age grade national championships.
Yes.
For that car.
Yeah.
It was well known. So the 6 cylinders. Another thing I remember back in the day, we had the Brandenburgers. We had the Sleeping Beauty car. That we had the Sour Six. We had quite a few 6-cylinder fast race cars in the days. I mean, that was unbelievable. It was the big advantage to a 6-cylinder.
It was a big advantage of the 6-cylinder. I drove that car quite often. I won the race in Fremont one year, a national race, and I won it in Denver driving the car myself. And I raced it here in town, drove the car quite often. There was something wrong with it. I always went and drove it to figure out what was wrong with it, whether it was the rear or something like that. But and we did different things in the car. We had all kinds of different modifications to the engines. But to store a car like that, we figured that nobody could beat us. It was bracket racing.
Right.
It was a whole thing of bracket races, not necessarily. But that car was, again, we didn't care. It was rarely that we got beat in a national race because we were the slowest car. And I remember there's a little Travelodge Pinto from San Diego, a little 4-cylinder that he ran good too. Against us as competition in national, he went. But anyways, by being a slower car like that, bracket racing, when we got to the end of this track, we could stop faster than anybody. We could stop shorter time than somebody going 120 miles an hour.
And they're closing on you at the same time.
Yeah, they're closing on us, and they had no idea where we were at. So it was rare for us to get beat.
So those are some great times drag racing.
Yeah.
You went beyond that. I know that you got involved with the IMCA modified car.
Yeah.
What was in your mind going? Do you want to go from drag racing to circle track racing?
We've always raced circle track. A lot of people didn't know I did that.
Right.
But we raced, and actually I grew up racing. And when I was probably 13 or 14, the local dirt track cars, I don't know how many cars I went down to the neighbors and helped him, took the cutting torch and cut the fenders off a 32 Ford. And put the wider wheels on it, and took Buicks and took the punch and punched the wheels out and welded the wide spoke rims on them, and put 820s on the one side of the car, and they were all flathead motors then. And we raced dirt track then when I was probably 14, 15 years old. Jalopy race, that's exactly right, yeah. So then, and here in town, and maybe in the 60s, 70s, 71s, we had a modified car that Leland McSpadden drove. And I think Leland that year before that was black flag from Manzanita for rough driving. So we told him, he says, well, we'll build you a car. Gary Stanton built us a car, and we'll be at the track all the time, and you just show up. So that year we won Trophy Dash, heat race, and main event many times during the year, and we were car points champion that year. So we had a lot of fun racing then.
He's quite a driver.
Kept on. What?
He was quite a driver.
He was a really good driver. And we told him, and then one of the things on that car, nobody else had it. We had a Smoky Munich cross ram on that 350 Chevy motor in that car, and nobody had that. Nobody else had it. So we had more horsepower than anybody.
So a little bit you outclassed them, outfoxed them with what you did,
And so then went on, and we've had sprint cars over the years, sponsored sprint cars, and we were a little bit involved with Total Seal rings, and when they first came to town, testing their rings and our drag race cars.
Joe Moriarty.
Yeah. And Bob Foster worked for them and drove our super. It was a sprint car. Bob Foster drove, and it had Total Seal rolls all over it. Yeah. So we've always been involved with circle tracks.
Mostly open wheel car.
Yeah, open. Yeah. and we got into modified racing later on, and we had big success in that. And we won in 2002, Boone, Iowa, and that we still have one. I still have a car that we haven't raced for about 3 or 4 years.
So in Boone, Iowa, that was the IMCA Nationals.
IMCA national race, that would be like us winning the Indianapolis 500.
Or U.S. Nationals, or the...
Yeah, U.S. Nationals, the biggest race they have in the United States. That weekend it was 400 cars, and we started up in the front row, and we led 40 laps. 30. It was a 40-lap race, and we led 39 of the laps, and we won the race.
It's quite a feat.
Quite a feat, yeah. Next year we come in and we borrow another person's driver, and we finished 4th the next year. And we raced a couple years after that, and we kind of quit doing that then.
So during all these years of racing, whether drag racing, definitely in the IMC modified, I had a little experience with that with myself with a car that Jerry Miller built for us.
Yeah.
And I know that it's not what the rules said, but it's what the rules didn't say. You remember some of the things?
That's the main thing. Yeah.
So you do something to befuddle everybody, and then next thing you know, whether it helped or not, they make a rule against it because they didn't know what it was.
Most of the time that way, yeah. Even in drag racing, a little bit about that too. You just figured out something a little better than anybody else could, and that was secrets. You didn't tell anybody what you were doing.
So that was the whole innovation. That was the innovation part of being a good drag racer, circle track racer. If you wanted to win, you had to be innovative.
Yeah, innovative. Yeah, figured out something a little better than anybody else, a little better mousetrap, and kept secrets, and we still do that today.
So you still run a shop. You have a shop.
Yeah.
And you're with your family. You're all involved, whether it's engine building or exhaust companies or How many children do you have?
5.
And how many grandchildren do you have?
I don't really. I think 33. And I have
children?
13 or 14 great grandchildren.
So you're blessed because you have a great sister.
Really blessed.
Great family. You've done a great job. I see that you not only do things, car stuff, but you'll go do vacations where it's really about history and seeing different things and travel places. So you've led a very blessed life.
I really had a good life.
If I know I don't want to throw this out to people, but if you ever get a chance to see some of Ed's collection, it's pretty spectacular.
Yeah. And I welcome people to come in and view it and have fun. Almost every day we have somebody come in. I have some customers that I've had for so many years, and business has been good. If you have that many good friends and that many good customers, it's easy.
Well, there's a secret and formula to it because you delivered what you promised.
Yeah.
But I want to recommend that your museum.
Yeah.
It's a collection. It's unbelievable, and it shows your passion, your love for this, what you've done through your years, and very fortunate that you've hung on to some of the stuff, and some of the parts you collected were other people's that would probably not be in the collection, but might have been in the garbage by now. It's very important you've done what you've done. So, for all these reasons, you're quite a guy, and we love you, man. And we're happy to say that you're not only everything else you've done, but you're an Arizona drag racing legend, and really an Arizona motorsports legend. And thank you so much for your time and being here.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.